I am good. So I'm David Watts, Managing Director of CCD Design and Ergonomics in the UK. We've been consulting and designing control rooms for 40 odd years now, so across a whole bunch of different sectors, different industries, but always focusing on designing for the people, for the operator. That's where we start.
Very good. And Fernando.
Yes, my name is Fernando Cajal. I come from GESAB, a Spanish company with 30 years old of designing and implementing mainly technical furniture in control rooms. We have a long experience in deployment and design, and I hope that our perspective as technical furniture manufacturers can help also, because we think that it's very important, not only the audiovisuals, but also the infrastructure where the audiovisuals are integrated.
Very good, okay. Rossano, you've just joined us on the stage. Please introduce yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from? What is it all about?
Yeah, I'm Rossano Giacchino. I'm from CERN. I've worked there for many years. I'm managing the CERN Control Center, and I'm also coordinator of the startup of the LHC.
Very good, thank you very much indeed. And we're just waiting for our final person to be wired up. So in the meantime, the panel debate we're about to go into, as you can see, it's about ergonomic design considerations. I think that's design, but we'll go along. So there's the first thing that's wrong with the ergonomics. Ergonomic design considerations. A really important thing, I think we've heard quite a lot about this morning. I don't know how many times you've picked up the words air conditioning, for example, from some of our colleagues who were speaking up there. You know, people think about screens, people thinking about walls and pot plants and things like that, desks, but it's some of the more fundamental things like lighting and air conditioning and these kind of things that seem to make a difference. Rossano, I seem to remember that you had some issues with this yourself.
Well, when we started to you want to?
No, you carry on first, and then we'll get to Astrid.
For us, it was a big problem, and it still is, but we try to mitigate. To my knowledge, in our field, we don't know many control rooms that they don't have air conditioning problem.
Yeah.
But we try to live with it, and nowadays it's, I would say it's, we can cope with it.
Okay, very good. Astrid, welcome to the stage. Please introduce
yourself.
Thank
you, sorry.
Not at all, not
late.
at all. That's me, I'm getting things running.
All right, I'm Astrid Oehme. I am Managing Director of Human Factors Consult. We are placed in Berlin, and we adapt software and hardware to human needs and requirements.
So let's carry on with you, and what are some of these needs, and how do you go about approaching these tasks?
Yeah, the needs for instance, we've heard of this already today a lot. To feeling secure, for instance, in with a working position with the technology you're using, also not to be overwhelmed by interacting with technology because it's too not well done in terms of usability. So these would be large requirements. Usability, for instance, and safety as well. And we go about that in that we accompany companies and research consortia from the beginning. So we try to integrate users from the beginning in the design of hardware and software, starting with, for instance, requirements analysis, task analysis, then we make suggestions in terms of design, and we also do human factors evaluations.
Okay, thank you for that. And Fernando, when it comes to the kind of work you're involved with, how do you approach the work with the end customer?
We approach the work always from three perspectives. Usually, we always consider the technology that will be inside of the control room, obviously. We consider also the human factors, the way that the people will work inside of the control room, and also the space that we have. Usually the work from David and from Astrid, if they do a previous work from us getting in, it will make our life much easier.
So you're a little bit further down the chain?
Yes.
Okay, because you're actually much more about the furniture itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
We find opportunities whenever the control room is also already decided to be at least implemented, or we come in also sometimes helping on the design to companies like David's and Astrid.
Yeah. But I mean, a desk is a desk. You know, I mean,
No,
a chair
don't
is
say
a chair.
that.
Really? Come on.
No, it's really important. It's really, really important. So the integration of those audiovisual elements in the furniture itself and the comfort that the operators will have when they are doing their job, it's really important for them to take good decisions and to have a good performance in the control room. So it's essential.
It's an essential item. David,
From my
would you
point of
agree
view,
with that?
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess a lot of the questions we're being asked at the moment by a lot of our clients is going back that slightly bigger picture and looking at the environment and the space, but in the context of the operation and how that operation is changing, and how, you know, particularly some of the things that we've heard today in terms of thinking about the big picture, how do you get that operational understanding, but also how do you see the control room as just, you know, one part of an overall kind of ecosystem and process. So we're being asked more and more to kind of look out there and then come back into eventually down to the desk and the information that's on that and how the room is functioning, but as part of that wider context, increasingly.
So this is a fine art form we're talking about. I mean, this is not your average interior design thing that's going on here. This is an art form. I mean, there must be standards around the design of control rooms and things. Is that fair? Do we know of standards in control room design?
Yeah, for sure. There is the ISO 11064.
Sorry, what was that one?
ISO 11064, which is specifically related to control rooms.
Yeah.
And it tells you the guidelines that you have to follow when you are designing or when you are implementing a control room in terms of lighting, acoustics, furniture, dimensions, usability.
I see. Rossano, did you know about ISO 11064 when you designed your control room?
Well, I don't remember if we knew that, but for sure, I think that what I can say, and you'll see also in my presentation, is that it took us long time to finalize our design, and for me, it was very important that on the end we got it right, and the advice that we got actually from CCD was vital, and I think that the thing I want to say is, and stress, is take the time, because once you have your control room, we have heard this morning, you have for 10, especially in our field, for 10, 15, 20 years sometimes. And if you do it wrong, the performance are not there.
So so within these control rooms, it's not as easy as it is in our front sitting room where we can just move the sofa from there to there. Once you've got your control room, it's pretty much fixed, right?
Exactly.
And so you've got to get it right. So what did you make? What did you make of our gentleman from Schiphol this morning with his mock-up of the whole air traffic control tower?
It's interesting, but yeah. I think that it was quite hard to do for us, and I think that it's a good exercise, because we did a small mock-up, but just one console, and this helped a lot for us to understand, because there is a way that you want to work, and I think this it's very important to adapt this to the way you want to work.
Okay.
But maybe coming back also to the chair that I mean, just to have an example, I'm trying to change chairs since 3-4 years, and not easy.
No.
People get used to it, and in order to please 100 people, it's not easy sometimes.
And it's important to please these people, Astrid. I think it's important that we please them. It's important that we do the best for them. I mean, do you agree? Why would we be bothered about our staff? Come on.
Sure. Of course, it's important, because one has to get the idea that people have to work there for a long time, and they should neither get bored nor overwhelmed and to get too much information. And also, they have a great responsibility, of course. These are critical control rooms, and as we heard before, if a call, for instance, is coming in, there is an emergency, and it's not good news. And to wait for that, it should be as comfortable as possible. But also, if you have these classical control rooms where you have to wait for some tiny bit of change of information for a long time, and it's a very monotonous task, of course, then you should be as comfortable as possible as well.
Okay, very good. David, what do you make of that?
I think the really interesting thing, and actually it goes a bit back to the previous panel discussion, is around business case. I think we really struggle with a lot of things in this area, the human bit, but actually I was thinking it while you were having the debate about kind of AV and data visualization. You've got all this technology that you can take advantage of, but are you really able to demonstrate the business case of implementing it? And we have the same on a lot of the kind of the people and physical things in terms of, you know, how can you demonstrate the likelihood or probability of things, you know, costing you a lot if you don't do them, and the value that you can add if you do them. And I think there's a real challenge around both bits, actually, this and the previous discussion around AV and data around the business case.
Fernando?
Yes, in our case, we have also struggled with this for some years. And now the way that we are approaching that, let's say, question marks for the end user of how the control room will be in terms of a mock-up or a real mock-up. What we are doing now is that we are bringing the virtual reality to our business. So we are making virtual reality presentations in which the client can see with a really high quality and realistic situation the interior of their control room, how the furniture is deployed, how the lighting is done. Obviously, we cannot do in virtual reality acoustics, but we are giving a really good idea with this. And that way, we are avoiding also the implementation of a big mock-up.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think, Rossano, you've got to get it right with your staff, because at the end of the day, these staff cost a lot. I think we heard David talking about 80% of his budget plus goes on his staff and the training that you put into them, and particularly in your instance, these are very, very highly skilled individuals, as I understand it. So it's right to get the control room environment as good as you can, right?
Yes. I think for us was vital. And again, you'll see in my presentation, but it's a big control room. It's 700 square meters, and it involves many, many people. Sometime during the day, you have 50 to 100 people working there. And so all this consideration, noise and lighting, is very important. So, and for us was even more difficult because it was the first time that these people were used to work together. And this, it adds an additional difficulties, of course. So you have to really make it an ergonomic, from an ergonomic point of view, you cannot fail. Otherwise, it will be a workspace where they will not work well.
Okay. So during our conversations today, we've been picking up on things like remote operations, and surprisingly, I think only 1 or 2 references to the word collaboration. But Astrid, collaboration is a really, really important thing. I firmly believe in a control room environment and between suppliers, between partners, whatever. How might you sort of think about audio-visual design considerations when you're thinking about the individual who's got to work at his desk, and then maybe a collaborative environment for a number of people to share in that sort of decision-making progress? Do you address it in different ways? What are the considerations you might think about here?
Yes, it should be quite different because on the one hand, you have to have the focal information right very much in front of you to pick up information. Also, maybe within individualized audio system. On the other hand, if you want to collaborate, you have to get a whole picture of it for a very maybe very heterogeneous group of people. So in order for them to gain a common picture, a visualization, of course, is the key for that. So we heard that before as well already. And so you might imagine like a big power wall where you get the whole picture and you can get together and talk about that. But you don't have to necessarily be in one room for that. Of course, you can think about remote conversations regarding that.
Fernando, what about sort of collaborative environments and
Yes.
the work you do?
About the collaboration,
Yeah.
well, it's constant collaboration in a control room. What we see is that now, from our perspective, the collaboration is being done from the work position itself, and as you say, remotely. Actually, we have some technology that can help on this, like an IP-based KVM system that will have some added features that will allow the operators to collaborate with each other, avoiding maybe the use of verbal orders between them and avoiding the noise in the control room. And that way, we are trying to approach collaboration from the work position.
And I think, Rossano, in your control room, it was a very fundamental ingredient in the layout that you finally went for, is the collaborative circle, I think, that we'll see later in the middle.
Yes.
So to what degree did that influence your design?
Yeah, for us it was very important one of the reasons we wanted to make this control room was to really collaborate together. And we were coming from different operation culture and units, so this was really the key of the success, of the future success of the LHC. So for the management, this point was very, very important. Therefore, we took such a long time to design not only the layout, but all the environment, because without this, would have failed, I think.
Okay. Again, I'm intrigued by the amount of time it takes for some of these projects to evolve and eventually come to that sort of go-live date with the new set, the new layout. I mean, again, listening to Schiphol this morning, that was fascinating to hear how long it was taking. I mean, David, in your experience, how long do should these projects take? You can't short-circuit. This is a very, very important thing, right?
Yeah, of course they vary. And I think there's two things often that go on, I think, in the projects that we do. One is where you're bringing a whole bunch of different things together. And in fact, those are the projects that work best when we're thinking about the technology alongside the building and the operation and how we bring those together. So it might take a long time because you're building a building, or you're investing in new technology. I think the other thing that makes projects take time sometimes is the fact that when you get into some of those detailed discussions, as we had at CERN and we have in lots of other similar projects, and you get into that detail around something like collaboration, and you start thinking through all the use cases, and we find actually a lot of organizations change their minds about how they want to operate in the future.
Yeah.
And actually there's a whole iteration that goes on in that process. And as you say, these things aren't built, it's very difficult to build them with flexibility. Everyone wants to get it right, even though you are kind of a bit obsolete by the time you've built it. So that takes time to get it right. You've got to invest, and if you kind of leap in, then you're going to find, you might not have something that works the way you want it to do, or you don't allow space for that thinking to evolve as you go through the process. And it is about a process.
Okay, so it's about a process. It's about taking your time when you're thinking about changing the layout or incorporating new facilities and features, desking, whatever, audio, visual. You've got to take your time to think this through. You've got to probably employ some experts. Okay, good. To help you with that. It's not just like rearranging the sitting room, right? I think that's the big message that I want people to take away from this.
It'd be great if you could.
It would be a lot easier.
It would be a lot easier.
But it's not. Okay, well listen, I'm going to pull it to a halt at that point. We're very close to lunchtime. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to thank our illustrious panel. We have Rossano, Fernando, David, and Astrid.